you only need 2 chords to make this type of productions. It couldn't be any easier. Hi there, this is Cozy Bear Beats, and I'm here to do another beat breakdown. Today I'm gonna do one for a dark R&B beat by my good friend producer DaBeat. The name of this production is Deja Vu. As always, I recommend that you listen to the full beat before you get into this beat breakdown. Here's the link. If you're ready, let's get into it. Alright then, so let's start with the usual, which is talking about all of the elements in this production. So you can see here we have a total of 15 elements. 5 are for the drums. So actually on this one, the drums, not a lot going on. I think the main thing is that there's not a lot of high-end information, like there's no crashes, cymbals, percussions, none of that, no shakers, none of that kind of stuff. So let's start with that. You see that we have the kick, very like usual R&B type of kick. Then this is actually going to be the main snare, just actually snaps. Then we're going to have this second one, which is kind of like the overlay. Let me play it on its own. Like a rim hit. So if you put them together, I've talked about this before, it's just layering the drums so they feel a bit fuller. You can see that there's moments where one of the snares play, then another with the other. So it's this type of thing with dynamics where you can have one of the 2 snares playing for a while, then the other one, and then both together in the parts where you want the most energy, like here. And then the last of the 3 is a snare with a lot of reverb. You can see that we only have it on the choruses and kind of the outro, which can also be just the second half of the chorus. A lot of reverb. 3 snares together with the kick. Hear that? And it's only every other snare, so there's more like, again, just variety dynamics to the whole thing. And then lastly, for the drums, you just add a hi-hat pattern. Let's listen to the hi-hat pattern on its own. Very simple stuff. Has some delay, as you can hear. So that's a good way of like giving you more like rhythm to the hi-hat, starting as a delay. In this case, it's a stereo delay. And then you can also see that it's only happening in the choruses. That's pretty much it. Like very, very simple drums. Let's listen to them all together on the chorus. Let's move on to now the 2 tracks for the low end. Very similar to the last beat that we did. DaBeat loves doing this thing where he has 808s, like the hit 808 on certain parts, and then just like a synth bass, like an evolving one on different parts. The interesting thing about this specific one is that the 808s only happen on the verses, while the evolving one happens on the chorus. Is usually the other way around. Let's listen to the 808 first on the verse. This one doesn't have a lot of the hit. It feels like it's also kind of like evolving type of thing. Not a lot of attack on it. But obviously, if you add the kick, then it's gonna make up for it. And then if we listen to the evolving one on the chorus, sounds like this. So again, notice that the main difference is that on this one, it's clearly like you can notice the synth type of sound, whereas the other one, it feels more like an 808 without the attack. And then this one has like a very, very long tail. So even in the waveforms, you can see how like between each 808, there's like a little bit of space and silence. This one is meant to always be filling the space, which is something that's very common. In the chorus is when you want the most energy, the most fullness, the most movement. So by not adding any space on the bass, everything is going to sound quite full. Then we're going to get into the main instrument, which is the electric piano. The whole of the song is based around this specific chord progression and this specific rhythm. As I've said before, every single song has this, where you're going to have the drums, you're going to have the bass, all of that kind of like takes the structure. And then you're going to have that one element that is kind of the main one that people perceive, the main one that gives the vibe and that gives you the chord information and all that stuff. In this case, it is this electric piano. This one is interesting because it's kind of a combination of two things. You can hear how there's like that very noticeable, like kind of bell-like hit on each note, and that makes every note feel very like separate from each other, gives a little bit of like that electric piano Ariana Grande vibe. But all of it also has kind of like a path underneath. So again, there's not a lot of silence in between. The pad is kind of filling the space of the chord, while the kind of like the sharp attack of each note makes it easier and more recognizable to hear the melody. Dun, dun, tan, 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 bum, 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 bum. Here is where I mentioned the magic of this beat, as I mentioned in the intro of the video. It's only two chords. We're in the key of F sharp minor, and it's only two chords. It's only the one chord, which is F sharp minor, and then it's the 5 chord, which is C sharp. Now, I'm not going to get too much into chord theory and all that stuff because I don't want to bore you guys with that. But essentially, on a minor scale, you're going to have the 1 minor, which is the F sharp minor. And then you would normally have the 5 but minor. In this case, they turn it into major, which is a very common thing to do just to create this kind of like very dominant, very like tense type of thing that kind of brings you back from 1 5 1 5 1 5. That is why those two chords work really well, because you're always feeling like tension, release, tension, release, tension, release. So the fact that that's happening throughout the whole thing, because that chord progression is always happening, that's what allows for the song to kind of like have this movement without feeling repetitive. So I'm going to play it again, and then I'm just going to mention what the 1 is and what the 5 is. 1, 5. 1, 5. So again, F sharp minor, main of the key, 5 chord C sharp. F sharp minor, C sharp dominant. And that's literally what's happening throughout the whole of the song. Even on the bass, you can hear that as well. You have the F sharp on the bass, F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, C sharp. All right, other than that, we have a bit of a lo-fi piano. Let's hear it out. Have like that lo-fi sound, that kind of like static going on it. Same thing is just doing some notes of the 1 chord and then the 5 chord. It's the same thing. Not a lot of reverb on this one, so when you hear the transition from verse and pre-chorus, it's actually quite cool. And then for pianos, you have this melody that happens on the verses and at the end. It's just like an ornamental type of melody just to add a little bit more of candy to the verse. And again, it's only happening on the verse and at the end, just to, especially on this second verse, is just so you can notice, okay, I've gone back to the second verse, but there's this new element, so it makes it a bit more interesting for the ears. Cool. And then lastly, for all of the harmonic elements, we're going to have the synth arpeggio type thing that happens mostly on the choruses. Also on the bridge is quite important. Same 1 chord, 5 chord. Same thing. 5, 1, 5. And you can also hear on this one how, number one, it has an arpeggiator. So the synth it was designed to have an arpeggiator where you're playing the chord, but there's like notes kind of like popping out. And then there's definitely some delay to it. So also those notes pop out even more. So it's a really good way of kind of like making this thing where it's like a kind of like a rain type of thing. And again, it's just ear candy. It's not ultra noticeable anywhere else other than the bridge. You'll notice why soon. But yeah, it's just something to add more thickness to the whole on the choruses. Cool. And that's pretty much it for that. Then we have the classic FX. You can see here I have the transitions. You can hear the transition here. Mentioned this several times. It's just like a whoosh coming in and then a whoosh coming out to kind of like separate the sections. You're gonna have this exhale that's gonna happen on the chorus. You'll notice that on a lot of DaBeat's productions, he uses that exhale. It's just one of his signature sounds. I think it's really cool. I really like it, actually. And then lastly, on the choruses, you have this kind of like tonal hits. Something that DaBeat uses a lot as well. And he's only adding that on the... Usually he uses them as transitions, again, as like the landing for a new section. On this specific production, he decided to use it more as just like something that's kind of like popping on top of the chorus, just to give everything more depth. Let's listen to the chorus on its own. very, very moody song. Again, it's like the classic dark R&B type of thing. It's fantastic. And then the very, very last track here is just like a vocal chop that's happening on the intro and the outro. Just a little bit of ear candy. Listen to it on its own. It's kind of like a stuttery thing going on there. I'm not entirely sure how he does that, but that's actually a cool sound. But yeah, that only happens at the beginning and at the end, and that is pretty much it for all of the elements. Okay, let's move to the song structure. It's a classic song structure, the one that DaBeat uses 99% of the time. You have the intro, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, and then the outro. Again, you listen to this here. I marked this an outro because it kind of felt like an outro, but it could also just be a double chorus. Let's start with the intro. What is the most important thing to showcase on the intro? It can be one or two things or both. The number one thing should be the main hook or melody. Like, for example, if this vocal was happening throughout the song, then you put it at the beginning. So from the beginning, people remember that vocal hook. In this case, and in most other cases, the most important thing is to hear the main element, because the main element is the one that's going to kind of give you an idea of what the vibe is for the song, what the harmony is going to be, the colors. Is it dark? Is it bright? Is it happy? Is it sad? So usually having that main element at the beginning is a really good way of you establishing, okay, this is what the whole atmosphere is going to look like, and then things are going to come in and out. The intro into the verse, transition is going to happen, and the 808 is going to come in. Snaps coming. No kick though for the first half of the verse. That's a cool thing. Until the second half of the verse, kick comes in. That's pretty much it. Very, very, very simple stuff. We move on to the pre-chorus. On the pre-chorus, the main instrument is going to drop. The other piano is going to come in, and then you're going to hear for the first time a little bit of that synth bass coming in. Really good for a little bit of a change of ambience before you land again in the chorus. As always, this should be a given by now, but this is the number one tip that I would give on any song, any production when you're going into the chorus. The chorus is going to be the place where you have almost every element that you've decided to do. It's going to be in the chorus. The more elements you have there, the fuller the picture is going to be. Everything's going to sound more energetic, just more of everything. You want to be aware of not doing that too much, because then it can get oversaturated or it can get overcomplicated. And you have to remember that, for example, this chorus, it doesn't necessarily sound like super like moving and rhythmic and a lot of stuff going on, but there's a reason for that. The main reason is because you want to leave enough space for once someone puts vocals in, that they take the spotlight. If you put melodies that come in and out, and then this random voice over here, and then a guitar, and then a band, and all this stuff, it's too much information happening, and it's going to have people not pay attention to the main thing that they should pay attention to, which is the vocals. Yeah, listen to the hook on its own. You're going to see you have the main instrument that came back, synth bass now in its fullness, the hi-hats came in for the first time, and also the synth harp. Notice how the synth harp is not noticeable. If I take it away, very subtle, very, very subtle stuff. It's there, but it's subtle. Land into the verse. Notice how on the first verse we have the snaps. On this one we have the rim hits, so it's a little bit of a difference. And then, as I mentioned, once you land into the second verse, that piano melody is kind of like the most noticeable different thing. Drops down. Second half of that verse, the synth harp is going to come in. Here is more noticeable than in any other part so far. But again, a lot of space for the vocals to do their thing. Pre-chorus. Pre-chorus is a carbon copy of the first one, actually, except for the fact that the hi-hats are here on this one. Chorus. Everything comes in, including that reverb. Then we're gonna land into the bridge. We're almost done with the song. You can see just from by looking at the stems that we're only gonna have the synth arp and the synth bass. That's pretty much the only two things that are happening in the bridge. So the bridge has like a very dramatic break, a lot of elements taken away, super common. So that way, when the chorus comes in for the last time, it feels bigger because you drop so much stuff. Synth bass on bottom, and that rain arpeggio, which is why I mentioned that it was the most important here. And then you come back into the chorus, which is the last one. And that's pretty much it. Then, as I mentioned, this outro could also be just the second half of the chorus. Let me just play a little bit of it. Do notice how the synth arp is going to drop. I think that's pretty much the only thing that changes. Yeah, so the only thing that's being different from this one and this one is that the tonal hits are not going to be happening, which I think is why I thought it was more of an outro, because those tonal things kind of like make a big part of the hook. And then how the synth arp leaves, but the piano melody comes in. Can also work as a chorus, to be honest. Vocal melody again. And that's it. By now, you'll start seeing some similarities between all of the beats that I've analyzed. I think it's important for you to start dissecting those similarities and start incorporating them into your productions. Hopefully, the more that we do these videos, the more you're gonna start understanding there are certain tips and tricks that we do a lot to make these productions sound as big and as good as they are. As always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give a like, comment, let me know which other beats you like for me to analyze or songs, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.